Tennis, everyone. A tribute to the late, great James L. Incandenza is a heavy electronic, breakcore, drill and bass, experimental, drone, post-metal, and IDM album made by RC Hakita Batala, who's mainly known for his work on Ultra Kill, which you probably know about. The art for the album was made by Big Rock, who's known for doing concept art for Ultra Kill and other things. Over the course of 1 year, Hakita released 3 WIPs for the songs in Tennis Everyone, the first of which being for at least 3 cheers for Cause and Effect, the second being for Wave Viper to the Bureaucrat, and the third being for the American Century as seen through a brick. All of these WIPs had screen caps from the Tatami Galaxy, specifically during its pilot, Tennis Circle Cupid, which shows Watashi playing tennis poorly. Also a pretty good anime, you should check it out. Hakita also released a WIP of at least 3 cheers for Cause and Effect on its Tumblr, but had a text description very similar to the one of Wave Viper to the Bureaucrat. As to why the Tatami Galaxy was chosen for the art for these MP4s, I'm not really sure, since there's nothing inside the album that really relates back to it, but we might get some confirmation as to why that is in the cassettes that will come out soon, which I'll probably also make another video on, and then completely abandon this YouTube account. The difference in these WIP versions is that in at least 3 cheers for Cause and Effect, around 10 seconds into the song, you can hear some instruments disappear. I guess I'll show a demonstration right now. Also, 47 seconds into the song, some swirliness disappears from the background. Guess I'll try to show that. Probably other things that I haven't picked up on yet, and the real only other difference that I can hear is that it fades out early as well, which I don't think I have to show. A difference in Wave Viper to Bureaucrat is that it doesn't have a sound that increases in the beginning. I guess I'll show that right here. Another thing that's different is that it uses a part of the beginning of the man who began to suspect he was made of glass inside of the WIP. For the American Century as seen through a brick, it seems to be the exact same except that it's the last 49 seconds of the song. Another thing that Hakita showed that I guess could be considered a teaser is a screenshot of the Bandcamp page of Tennis Everyone. In the screenshot it actually shows Fun with Teeth Bye Bye Part 2 being 4 minutes and 6 seconds instead of 3 minutes and 48 seconds, which I guess is pretty neat. I have no idea why it was cut. On July 18th, 2025, Hakita made a post about Satan's Tango, mainly about it being released on vinyl, but also had an other news section about Tennis Everyone, well not Tennis Everyone since he didn't even call it Tennis Everyone like then and there, but about a new Hakita album coming out soonish. On July 29th, 2025, Hakita made a post on his Bandcamp announcing that Tennis Everyone would be coming out on Bandcamp Friday and would be streaming on YouTube later. I remember him making a post on Twitter announcing the exact time that it would come out, which is 1 PM EDT. I'm not sure what it is about the time zones, but it's since been deleted, but I could have sworn there was a post about that, but yeah. Finally, on August 1st, Tennis Everyone began on youtube.com/watch?v=enzo_I'm_DLXM, which I think is a pretty neat URL. During the premiere, Hakita sent 6 messages. One re-announcing that there's no relation to Ultra Kill in the slightest and it's just his own project. Another being that it's 36 minutes. Another asking if everyone's ready for the last song, Infinite Jest. Another one saying that it's not over because of Infinite Jest's many fake outs, another linking the free download to the Bandcamp page, and the last one announcing that the album loops. Later during that day, Hakita reposted a bunch of art based around Tennis Everyone, which you should check out its Twitter page for the reposts because it's pretty cool. I'll get into the tracks themselves later, as right now I'm just focusing on the general history of the album. On August 10th, 2025, Hikita made a post about Tennis Everyone going up on other streaming services that aren't YouTube. And because he put them on other streaming services, he had to make different versions that didn't have music that was not music. That didn't have films that weren't public domain. The tracks that were affected by this are Wave Bye Bye to the Bureaucrat, The Man Who Began to Suspect He Was Made of Glass, Fun with Teeth Bye Bye Part 2, Flux in a Box, and that's it. I don't know why I didn't say end for that. But he also announced that he wanted to look into small, limited ones of physicals for the album, which became the vinyls and cassettes that we have now. Well, not now because we don't have them now, but soon. I don't know why, but in my mega collection of things relating to Tennis Everyone, it has this tweet for some reason that has nothing to do with it, but it just mentions a break from Tennis Everyone. No, I have no idea why it's in there. On September 26, 2025, Hikita announced that Tennis Everyone would be coming on cassette and vinyl on Shadowfoil Industries' Bandcamp page. On their Bandcamp page, they gave a little bit more detail into what's going on with the cassettes and vinyls. They announced that there would be 50 yellow cassettes and 50 orange cassettes, and other than the color, they would have no difference. The cassettes have an additional 2 panels of print on the outer card, letting some text being written by the artist for each track. I don't know if they mean Big Rock or Hikita by that, but I guess I'll see once I get them. It could just be really obvious and I'm not picking up on it, but yeah. Another thing that they have is a fold-out on the front, which includes all the art for the album, the credits, and the entire track list. The vinyl has locked grooves, which means that whenever you play the album, the last 1.8 seconds of each side will loop until the needle is lifted. They also announced that the physicals would be slightly higher than what they usually are at. Both physicals also include additional art by Big Rock, which I will also get into the art of later. On October 3rd, 2025, the vinyl was released for pre-order for $30 and the cassette was released for pre-order for $15. On October 4th, 2025, Shadowfoil released an apology on the Bandcamp because the email didn't quite reach everybody. Probably because that day was Bandcamp Friday and there was a lot of traffic on the website, but that's just my guess. On October 12th, 2025, Shadowfoil ran out of tapes for Tennis Everyone, and as today there are 19 vinyls remaining. There's probably none by the time this is released on YouTube, but yeah. As of today, with the details of the physicals of the vinyl, they are still working on the printing details, but we'll probably get some information pretty soon. And that about does it for the history of Tennis Everyone, so now we'll get into the tracks themselves.
About to fire a subsonic wave. Should stun everyone that hears it, so you might want to cover your ears.
At least 3 cheers for cause and effect. It's 4 minutes and 19 seconds and has a BPM of 106. That BPM of 106 is shared within every track on the album, which makes it all loop like a lot easier. Oh, that's another thing I should mention. Every single track inside the album loops into each other, so if you're going from one track to another, the loop is kind of seamless. The only part in the album where this kind of drops is between at least 3 Tears for Cause and Effect and Wave Bye Bye to the Bureaucrat. One thing that I've noticed with the track name is that it sometimes appears in brackets, like inside the Hikita topic channel that is provided to you by TuneCore. I'm not sure why it appears in brackets. They might have just changed it for some reason, but I'll look into other track name changes later when I'm talking about those specific tracks. The name of this track, alongside every other track in this album, is taken from the filmography of James Owen Cadenza, which is the footnote inside Infinite Jest. The description for at least 3 Tears for Cause and Effect reads: the headmaster of a newly constructed high-altitude sports academy, Watt, becomes neurotically obsessed with litigation over the construction's ancillary damage to a VA hospital far below. As a way of diverting himself from his wife's, Heath's, poorly hidden affair with the academically renowned mathematician topologist who is acting as the project's architect, Rection. This naming scheme also applies to the album name itself, which comes from a film of James Owen Cadenza's. The description for Tennis Everyone reads: public relations / advertorial production for United States Tennis Association in conjunction with Wilson Sporting Goods. Just this morning, Shadowfoil Industries released a picture of the cassettes, which includes a track description of each track inside of the album. And I think I'll go over those once the actual cassettes get shipped, and I have one, which will be inside of my next video, and probably last video. So now let's move on to Wave Bye Bye to the Bureaucrat. Wave Viper to the Bureaucrat is 3 minutes and 19 seconds and has a BPM of 106. Interestingly, it is exactly 1 minute shorter than at least 3 cheers for cause and effect. The film description to Wave Viper to the Bureaucrat reads, possible parody / homage to the B as public service announcement cycle of Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. A harried commuter is mistaken for Christ by a child he knocks over. This track does have samples, but I want to get into samples once I'm done with every single track because there's a message I want to put before mentioning the samples. I think I've covered everything that's not sample related about this track, so now I'll move on to the man who began to suspect he was made of glass. The man who began to suspect he was made of glass is 5 minutes and 53 seconds and has a BPM of 106. The film description to the man who began to suspect he was made of glass reads, a man undergoing intensive psychotherapy discovers that he is brittle, hollow, and transparent to others. He's become transcendentally enlightened or schizophrenic. This is the only track that has a sample confirmed by Hikita. When someone asks where a sample saying, my blood has spilled like water, came from, Hikita replied with, it's from the English tribe of El Topo. And that about does it for the general information about the man who began to suspect he was made of glass, so now I'll move on to Found Drama 1. Found Drama 1 is 1 minute and 39 seconds and it has a BPM of 106. This track is meant more as a transition between the man who began to suspect he was made of glass and Fun with Teeth Bye Bye Part 2 rather than its own track by itself, so it's not really meant to be listened to by itself. I mean, you could, but no, I wouldn't recommend it. One thing I've noticed about this track's name is that it loses its ellipses, well not ellipses because it's stylized as periods inside of the Tennis Everyone upload, but it loses them inside of its Spotify release and the automatic YouTube generated channel thing, which I thought meant that that was its actual name since it appears more as that, but once we got pictures of the cassettes, it was stylized as Found Drama 1. So I'm leaning on it being called Found Drama 1. The film description for Found Drama 1 reads, one thing about this track that I'm going to put here instead of the sample section because I don't think anyone's going to find this is that it reuses a sound from Red Herring, specifically 11. There's no pike that can pierce mist. It's kind of all over the place where it samples it, so you can just visit it yourself if you want to do that. Another interesting thing about this track is 54 seconds into it, it switches to elevator-esque music for some reason. This track also ends with alarm clock noises, which makes the transition very smoothly into Fun with Teeth Bye Bye Part 2, which I will now be going into. Fun with Teeth Bye Bye Part 2 is 3 minutes and 48 seconds and has a BPM of 106. The original track name did not include the Bye Bye Part 2 at the end of it, and it reads Kowinski / Updike / Peckinpah parody. A dentist, Birch, performed 16 unanesthetized root canal procedures on an academic, Tolan, he suspects of involvement with his wife, Heath. This track is meant as a sequel to Wave Bye Bye to the Bureaucrat, and has the exact same laughter, gunshot noises, and alarm clock sounds as it. One thing they'll show here instead of a voice of it is that it was likely going to be called Too Much Fun at first, and that is also a film by James Owen Condensa. And the reason I say that is because if you go to heavenpierceher.bandcamp.com/track/too-much-fun, it will lead you right back to Fun with Teeth Bye Bye Part 2. And that's not like, it didn't just look for the word fun in there, like if I go with Fun with Shoes, it'll just give you this page. So it was likely going to be called Fun with Too Much Fun at first. And that about does it for Fun with Teeth, so now I'll move over to Flux in a Box. Flux in a Box is 3 minutes and 53 seconds and has a BPM of 106. It has the most samples by far of any track inside of Tennis Everyone. The film description of Flux in a Box reads, documentary history of box, platform, lawn, and court tennis from the 17th century court of the Dauphin to the present. Flux in a Box and Infinite Jest are the only two tracks on this album that sample Kaizo Slumber's sample pack. A very similar situation happens with Flux in a Box as with Fun with Teeth by 2, where if you go to the American Century As Seen Through a Book's individual Bandcamp page, you'll see that it's called the American Century As Seen Through a Book 2. And if you remove that 2, it will lead you to Flux in a Box, which probably means that Flux in a Box was originally going to have the American Century As Seen Through a Book's name. And that about does it for Flux in a Box's general information, so I'll now move on to the American Century As Seen Through a Book. The American Century As Seen Through a Book is 2 minutes and 56 seconds and has a BPM of 106. Unrelated at all to the song, but the song's like this 2 to the 8th power if you ignore the fact that minutes and seconds are not the same thing. The American Century As Seen Through a Book is the only metal song inside of Tennis, Everyone, which even Nikita himself recognizes is kind of insane. The film description for the American Century As Seen Through a Book reads, as U.S. Boston's local backbase boots a scripted work repaved with a polymorphous event, the resulting career of one script work is followed. From found art temporary installation to displaced by EWD catapult, the waves quarry in southern Quebec to its use in the echo key inserted anti-onan lights of genuine/whopper, all intercut with ambiguous shots of a human dumb's alterations in the interface pattern of a flux string. That about does it for Takastab, so now we'll move on to Found Drama 2. Found Drama 2 is 1 minute and 59 seconds and has a BPM of 106. This track uses various NOAA broadcast sounds, which I'll show inside of the sample section since I guess they technically count as a sample, just like Found Drama 1. It has a very drastic change at 0:55, in which it transforms into like, I don't know my instruments, like either piano or harp, I guess. I don't know instruments at all. Also, like, Found Drama 1 is spent more as a transition between the American Century As Seen Through a Book and Infinite Jest. Found Drama 2 contains slight pieces of Infinite Jest inside of it, which I guess I'll show right here. The film description for Found Drama 2 reads, that about us for Found Drama 2, so now we'll move on to Infinite Jest. Infinite Jest is 8 minutes and 11 seconds and has a BPM of 106. Alongside Flux in a Box, this also samples Kaizo Slumber's sample. It also uses the same NOAA broadcast that Found Drama 2 uses. The style of the ending is similar to the one inside of Satan's Tango, which I'm not gonna put it here because that would be too long, but if you listen to both of them, like one after another, you'll be able to see what I'm talking about. I'm not sure if that was on purpose or if it's just how Nikita makes music. At the very, very end of Infinite Jest, it repeats the same intro to At Least 3 Cheers for Cause and Effect, making the entire album loop perfectly. The film description for Infinite Jest reads, and it condenses unfinished and unseen first attempt at commercial entertainment. At 2 minutes and 58 seconds into the song, you can hear part of Infinite Jest playing at half speed. I'll show that here. That about does it for Infinite Jest, so now I'll get into samples, but before I get into samples I want to say something real quick. I heavily recommend looking for these samples on your own, or at least asking for pointers for them in the comment section. I only say that because looking through these samples was very fun for me personally, and I guess I don't really want to ruin the experience for anyone who just wants to do that. I'll put a timestamp on screen for anyone who wants to get to it. If you don't really care about this album, I guess it wouldn't hurt, since you're probably not going to come back to this in any way, but I don't know, like, if you just consider skipping it, I guess? That's a weird thing to say, I'm not sure. Leave Baptist the Bureaucrat has a sample at 019, which is laughter that sounds like this. That laughter is taken from Harakiri at 5023, which is this. Interesting thing about this specific sample is that he just showed this film on his Twitter. It's this exact same scene as well. In the public domain version of Wait Bye Bye to the Bureaucrat, this laughter is replaced with what I think is just stock sound effects of a crowd cheering and laughing. I watched all the films for Tennis Everyone a while back, so this could appear in one of them and I just didn't realize it at the time, but I don't think that it appears in any of them. So I just think it's a stock sound effect. The man who began to suspect he was middle class has a sample at 051, which sounds like a monologue, and it sounds like this.
My blood spills like water. All my bones have been wrenched.
This is taken from El Topo at 1 hour, 11 minutes, and 58 seconds.
My blood has spilled like water. All my bones have been wrenched.
In the public domain version, it sounds like this. The film that it samples here is from The Stranger, and specifically this argument.
Dang.
I told you not to call anybody.
Oh, but surely not.
Call him and tell him not to go.
Well, I can't. I talked to him over.
Call him, I say!
He's gone.
If he dies, his blood will be on your hands.
The man who began to suspect he was made of glass has another sample at 2:30, which sounds like this.
My God, why hast thou forsaken me? Why art thou so removed from my salvation? Why is thy ear deaf to my pleas? My God.
And it's also taken from El Topo just a couple of seconds later.
My God, why hast thou forsaken me? Why art thou so removed from my salvation? Why is thy ear deaf to my pleas? My God.
This is what it sounds like in the public domain version.
You know who I was when I came here today. But you were surprised to see me alive, weren't you? Sure, I can stand here and talk to you. I can breathe and I can move. But I'm not alive.
This is a sample from DOA, specifically this part.
You know who I was when I came here today, but you were surprised to see me alive, weren't you? But I'm not alive, Mrs. Phillips. Sure, I can stand here and talk to you. I can breathe and I can move, but I'm not alive.
Fun with Teeth by Part 2 uses the same laugh from Wait Bye Bye to the Bureaucrat, which is from Harakiri, and also has another section at 149 that samples a film that sounds like this.
Out of the black silence, you were born in
The film that sample is called Blast of Silence, and the sample sounds like this.
remembering. Out of the black silence, you were born in pain.
In the public domain version of Fun with Teeth by Part 2, it's replaced with a sample that sounds like this.
12 long hours before the sun will rise and drive them back to darkness.
And the sample itself is from The Last Man on Earth, which sounds like this.
And now, 12 long hours before the sun will rise and drive them back to darkness.
Flux in the Box has a sample right at the beginning of the track that sounds like this.
East でも意地を張って仮面に逆らってたんじゃシワの寄り方も偏ってしまいますからね。もっと気楽に笑ったり口笛を吹いてみたり。
This is taken from The Face of Another, which sounds like this.
いつまでも意地を張って仮面に逆らってたんじゃシワの寄り方も偏ってしまいますからね。もっと気楽に笑ったり口笛を吹いてみたり。
It has another sample at 131 that sounds like this.
素直な気持ちで仮面を受け入れてもらわない
あと3分ほどですが。
と。そう。
This is also taken from The Face of Another just a couple of seconds later, and it sounds like this.
素直な気持ちで仮面を受け入れてもらわないと。
あと3分ほどですが。
そう。
Flux in the Box has a section at 212 that might be a sample, but I'm not sure because it sounds similar to a part that's in The Face of Another. I'll like play it for you and then play the part that I'm think it might be a sample of, but I'm just not sure if it's a sample of it or not. They just sound very similar to me. And it also changes in the public domain version to what might be part of the film that's there as well. But I'm not sure if it's a direct sample of it or not, or just sounds very similar. At 337, Flux in the Box also has a sample that sounds like this.
明日なんですよ。攻撃時刻は午後4時頃。ちゃんと作戦も立ってるんです。明日。
And this just comes from later in the film from The Face of Another.
明日なんですよ。攻撃時刻は午後4時頃。ちゃんと作戦も立ってるんです。明日。
And for the public domain version of Flux in the Box, there's a pretty interesting thing where it takes all the samples that you've heard before in the previous tracks and then uses them all. So at 000, it uses a sample from DOA, but not the exact same sample that you heard earlier. I'll play that right now.
What do you mean? A day, possibly a week, 2 weeks at the outside. Do you realize what you're saying? You're telling me that I'm dead.
And here's the original sample for that.
What do you mean? A day, possibly a week, 2 weeks at the outside. It's hard to say exactly.
Well, this is impossible. I don't believe it. You've made a mistake. That's it. It could be a mistake, couldn't it? You have made a mistake, haven't you? Answer me.
Dr. Schaefer is an authority on toxicology.
Been no mistake, Mr. Bigelow. Do you realize what you're saying? Well, you're telling me that I'm dead.
At 131, it uses a sample from The Last Man on Earth, which I'll play.
We'll find an answer.
When, Doctor? We need it right now. I need it. Is everybody in the world going to die?
And the original sample sounds like this.
But believe me, Morgan, we'll find an answer.
When, Doctor? We need it right now. I need it.
You're the only one who wasn't afraid to come here today.
What's going to happen, Dr. Mercer? Is everybody in the world going to die before someone finds the answer?
No, I don't think so.
And finally, at 337, it takes a sample from The Stranger that sounds like this.
My dear Charles, if we concede your argument, there is no solution.
Once again, I differ.
Well, what is it then?
Annihilation. Down to the last babe in arms.
And this was material sounding like this.
But Marx wasn't a German. Marx was a Jew.
But my dear Charles, if we concede your argument, there is no solution.
Well, so once again, I differ.
Well, what is it then?
Annihilation. Down to the last babe in arms.
The samples I hear, Flux in the Box that are from Kaiser Slumber's sample pack are E, The Real Friend, DM7, and B, RRRD. I'm not gonna play them here because I think you should just buy it yourself, but I will play a section that has E, The Real Friend right now a lot. And BRRD a lot. Found Drama 2 samples various NOAA broadcasts. I don't think I found them all, but well, I found where Nikita got them from, but I don't think I found all of the broadcasts, but I will put the ones here that I have found.
At 1130, 210 degrees 9 knots. Abidjan at 1130, 210 degrees 9 knots. Visibility 10 kilometers or more.
Santa Maria Oceanic, FIR, severe turbulence, forecast. Santa Maria Oceanic, FIR, severe turbulence, forecast within 3012 north.
Bonjour, Dekim 268 Charlie, coming back at 130, Yamaha 662. Protected waters with widely scattered thunderstorm. Outlook Sunday through Tuesday. You're listening to NOAA Weather Radio, KIH 59 in Dozier and WWF 55 in Jackson, Alabama. WWF 55 is a joint effort between the National Weather Service and the Florida Washington Cooperative.
Infinite Jest also samples Buff D from Kaiser Slumber's sample pack, which I'll show where it happens a lot right here. I've probably missed a couple of times where Kaiser Slumber's sample pack has been sampled inside of Flux in a Box and Infinite Jest. So if you find any that I've somehow missed, comment down where I've missed them, and I might put them in, and I'll put them in the physicals video. That about does it for the sample, so I guess I'll get into my personal opinion of everything related to the album. I really like this album to a point where I listen to it around 9 times a day and reference it in almost everything that I do. I'm also right now reading Infinite Jest. I think right now I'm on page 450. I couldn't tell you what the hell it's about. And I should also get into the film. Okay, let me bring them up real quick. If I were to make a tier list of the tracks for me personally, it would probably look like this. If I were to make a tier list of the films, it would go The Last Man on Earth, Blast of Silence, El Topo, Valkyrie, The Face of Another, DOA, then The Stranger. I expected that part to be longer, but now I guess I'll get into information that doesn't really fit anywhere. The font used of the physical album for Tennis Everyone is VLNLDBXLZX. Yeah, I'll just show it on screen. According to this tweet, there was originally going to be 10 songs for Tennis Everyone, but was probably scrapped due to time constraints or failing to find a place to put it in the album. Though I think it would have been nice to have it between at least 3 Cheers for Cause and Effect and Wave Bye Bye to the Bureaucrat. I have no idea if this gif of Hakita playing tennis and Tomodachi Life is related to this album in any sort of way in the slightest, but I've seen this gif before. I don't know why. I've read every comment on Tennis Everyone's YouTube page, but the only comment I believe that Hakita has responded to is this one where he confirms that the original and square versions of the pictures of the album come alongside the download. Shadowfall also responded to a comment inside of Tennis Everyone just saying, "Oh hi, that's me," to someone talking about them putting it on cassette and how they'd be jumping with joy. At 042 of the public domain version of Fun with Teeth, it sounds different in a way from the original version. and it doesn't even have any samples there. It just sounds different. I'm not sure if you could accidentally use a beta track or something, but I guess I'll demonstrate it here right now for you. I've seen some people say that the sounds in Wave Driver to the Bureaucrat are microwave sounds, and that is referencing the death of James L. in Condensa. I always thought that it was the sound that phones make when you're calling someone, but I guess it makes more sense as being referenced to that, but to me it just doesn't sound like that. But yeah. Orange was the first color of the cassettes to sell out first. At exactly 12:42 at 6 p.m. EDT on November 28th, 2025, Tennis Everyone hit 10,000 likes on its YouTube page. I know you can read the text on the images that Shadowfall released on their Twitter page, but I'm gonna go over that once they actually get shipped out, since you can't see... Well, you can see a bit of flux in the boxes, but from there on it gets pretty hard to read, so I think I'll just go into that once they actually come. And it just also looks pretty interesting. Yeah. So I have this one instrument that's an Infinite Jest. I'm not sure what it is, but I hear it in so many different places. Yeah, I'm just gonna play it right here. I'm not sure what this instrument is. If you know what this instrument is, please comment what it is down below, because I'm losing my mind trying to find what it is. And thank you, I guess. Okay, here's a small update. I don't know what this website uses, like what instrument, but I think it's this music box instrument. I'm not sure where this comes from, but here's my bad recreation of Infinite Jest, but I think it's the instrument, but I'm not sure. Yeah, I can't really put music down as I hear it, but yeah, that's my best recreation of it. I think it's an instrument, but I'm not sure. I guess this is kind of unrelated to this section, but I kind of wish that there was like a place where you could talk about Akita's other music that isn't Ultra Kill related, because like whenever you go to like any of Akita's other projects, it just seems like there's just Ultra Kill like everywhere, like in the comment section, and I just kind of like wish there was a place for that. I mean, Akita's Bandcamp page exists, but it's not really that filled. I mean, I guess you could talk about things there, but like the top comment on, well, not the top comment, I'm not sure what the top comment is, but like one of the top comments on Tennis Everyone, like it says, can't wait for the comment section to be fully about, can't wait for the comment section to be fully about, can't wait for the comment section to be fully about Ultra Kill and not the song itself, and not the song itself, and not the song itself. Was that, I don't know if that's grammatically correct, but I just kind of wish that there was a place like that we could just talk about his other projects without having Ultra Kill mentioned. I like Ultra Kill, like I do like Ultra Kill. I just like, yeah, I haven't repeated the same thing like 3 times now. I probably have. I think that's all of the information I have about Tennis Everyone, a tribute to the late great James L. in Condensa. So I think that does it. Oh, if you know anything that I haven't mentioned about Tennis Everyone, tell me. Please in the comments. Well, you can't message me because I don't have my Discord at in here, but just leave a comment about whatever I've missed somehow. I'll probably address it in the next video about the physicals, but yeah, I've got to go edit this, and I guess I'll see you once the physicals come.